Direct News TV. March 21, 2024. Russia-Ukraine War Live News, EU leaders to discuss frozen Russian assets. European Union national leaders will discuss a plan to use billions of euros in profits from frozen Russian financial assets to buy arms for Ukraine as they try to bolster Kiev in its fight against Moscow's invasion. Russia has launched a wave of missile strikes on Ukraine's capital Kiev, wounding at least 13 people and damaging several buildings, according to local officials. Hungary has not and will not deliver weapons to Kiev, official says. Hungary's foreign minister says Budapest will not join a Czech-led ammunition initiative to procure and send weapons to Ukraine. Hungary has not and will not deliver any weapons to Ukraine. We don't take part in any common actions which end up in joint weapon deliveries, Peter Zigerto said at a news conference in Prague. Russia expels Spanish journalist. Spain's El Mundo daily reports that one of its journalists has been expelled from Russia, calling it an attack on press freedom. On Wednesday, Xavier Colas, who had been working in Moscow for 12 years, was given 24 hours to leave Russia because he had not obtained a work visa, which Moscow refused to renew, the report said. El Mundo wrote that an official notified Colas of this decision and threatened him with unspecified problems if he did not leave before his work visa expired. In recent months, police officers visited the Spanish journalist at his home and asked him to stop covering demonstrations by the wives of Russian soldiers, which they said are one of the few visible signs of discontent with the war in Ukraine. It's been more than 2 years since Russia invaded Ukraine, and it is still very much a priority for EU leaders. They are looking to try and step up military support for Kiev. We expect them to sign off on a new military aid package worth more than $5 billion. They're also encouraging member states to sign their own bilateral deals with Kiev. We saw that, for example, recently in France, where member states could help supply Kiev with the things it needs, like ammunition and air defense systems. There's no doubt there is a real renewed sense of urgency among EU leaders when it comes to Ukraine, not only because of the recent re-election of Putin but also over the uncertainty of support for Ukraine from the United States. There is a sense the EU really needs to be, on what some EU leaders are calling a war footing, and that's why EU leaders will also be talking about things like trying to bolster their own defense capabilities and trying to fuel their own defense and armament industries. Deadly Russian attack rocks Odessa, Ukraine vows to defeat lunatic Putin. Russian forces' creeping momentum has continued for a fifth week after the fall of Avdiivka in eastern Ukraine as the Russian command moved reservists from other parts of the front to press its advantage. The villages of Tonink and Nevelsk, west of Avdiivka, fell to the Russian advance by Saturday. In the same area, Russia's Ministry of Defense claimed Orlovka 3 days later, and Russian forces seemed to be swallowing the village of Berdichi street by street. The enemy concentrated its main efforts in the Avdiivka direction and for several days in a row has been trying to break through the defense of our troops, defended by 3 brigades, said Ukraine's commander-in-chief, Oleksandr Syrsky. Thunderous explosions ring out across Kiev. This is said to have been the largest such missile strike on the Kiev region in a month and a half. Early Thursday morning, the air raid sirens started to sound and just before dawn we got the first of these thunderous explosions ringing out across the capital as missiles were being intercepted. Air defenses got to work and missiles started falling down, or bits of those missiles as they were intercepted. The authorities believe around 31 missiles in total were launched by the Russians. 2 of them are said to have been Kinzhal hypersonic missiles, the rest are also said to have been cruise missiles launched from strategic bombers. People took shelter in air raid shelters and also in the metro system as they have done in the past. India's Modi has open invitation to visit Russia. The Kremlin says Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi is welcome to visit Russia and that a meeting with President Vladimir Putin would take place, though details were still to be worked out. Kremlin spokesman Dmitry Peskov was responding to a question about a report that Putin had invited Modi to visit Russia. This has yet to be agreed through diplomatic channels, Peskov told reporters. Of course, the Prime Minister of India has an open invitation to visit our country. Kremlin says Russia will retaliate if EU agrees to use frozen assets. The Kremlin said Russia would take retaliatory measures in its own interests and use every legal mechanism at its disposal if the EU used profits from frozen Russian assets to buy arms for Ukraine. Kremlin spokesperson Dmitry Peskov made the comments ahead of a meeting of EU leaders on the proposal. In case you're just joining us, let's bring you up to speed on all the latest developments. Russia's defense ministry says its forces have captured the village of Tonink in eastern Ukraine, 8.5 kilometers, 5.2 miles, west of Avdiivka. European Union leaders will discuss a plan to use frozen Russian assets to buy arms for Ukraine as they try to bolster Kiev's war efforts. Russia launched a missile attack on Kiev, injuring at least 13 people and damaging residential buildings, city officials say. Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov says the US is unlikely to accept the Ukrainian oil price cap proposal. The Chinese ambassador to Russia, Zhang Hanhui, says Moscow and Beijing will continue to stand back to back, the state news agency TASS reported. Please like, share, subscribe and hit that notification bell so you can be the first to be notified whenever we post. You won't regret it.